everybody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and you're not going to believe this. But on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
Yep, Captain Mark. What's happening, brother?
What's going on, man?
Nothing.
Good to be here.
You look great in that seat. You really do. You look great in that seat. We were, you know what? We were laughing, folks, before we went live. If you're one of the people that has come over and are checking us out from the SPTV, Mark is one of the original founders of the Lifeboat, and we spent. We start deep diving, you'll come across a lot of us because Mark did, I don't know, 500 hours maybe of Lifeboat time. Awful lot of time.
Yep.
So it's always fun to get Mark back, and we're gonna dive into some stuff today, Mark, that I find interesting as hell because since the last time we talked to you, there's just been so much craziness that it's funny, things that you and I predicted. You know what I mean? Like a year ago when we sounded crazy and conspiratorial. So now they admit we're up to 300 people a day that are dying of drug overdoses. And that xylazine garbage that we talked about last year is now every single state in the union has had busts for it. Now that I'm living in Tucson, right down the street from here, they had to evacuate the jail because of a xylazine and the trank dope contamination.
I always thought that was interesting because I actually told my doctor about trank. They had no idea what that was. And it's like, how do we know this kind of stuff and they don't? That right there shows there's a disconnect and a big problem.
A huge disconnect. And the crazy thing is, like, if you remember back to the first time we talked about this, their first bust of xylazine in the U.S. was in 1996. You know what I mean? Like this stuff's been coming over here for a long time. I don't know how it wasn't really getting traced, but I guess it was coming from Puerto Rico, and it wasn't a huge deal. Like a lot of it coming over, and then once the fent hit the market, people complain that it doesn't have legs. That an hour or two into it, people are already starting to think about the next shot. So they mix it with that xylazine, and now you're unconscious from the benzo, standing there. You've seen the poses.
Oh yeah, I mean, go down to Kensington or Skid Row.
The Kensington ones in particular. We have a woman on the boat now who came over from the Growing Up in Scientology channel that lives in that part of the country. I took a screenshot yesterday of one that I saw on a site, and it looked staged. There were 5 people standing like in a hacky sack circle kind of a thing. And they're all bent back completely at the waist in positions. You're just looking at it going, you've got to be kidding.
Yeah.
And then later on, you actually see that that's a still from them driving by and filming it. Like this was going on. Yeah. This wasn't fake. It was just absolutely staggering to me.
I think, didn't we show? Yeah, we showed a few of those pics and small videos. And I came across that one where the guy was moving and his wife was in it. Remember that? And I said, let's time this. What was it? Was it 19 seconds?
Yeah.
And he was he was done. He couldn't move. His wife.
I know there's crew members on right now that know exactly what you're talking about. It's so we did a video. It had to be probably 7 months ago, maybe more than that, where Mark had pulled up a clip of film of a husband and a wife, and I think they had kids in the back seat, if my memory serves me right. But this guy hit. And he wasn't shooting it. He was smoking the stuff. And he took one hit off of this tin foil, and in 19 seconds he was unconscious. And I'm talking about like wife scared, smacking him around, kind of unconscious. It was a terrifying clip of film.
It was, and I think we were actually using that to try to point out to people that, when you do it like that, people don't realize that smoking it is the fastest way to get it into your system.
And you could straight OD on it. I mean, with heroin, that was virtually an impossibility. But with the stuff that they're making in the labs, and as strong as this stuff is, you get a hot spot of it. And you're inhaling all of that into your body. Your ME receptors are just going to get completely, the tap is going to get turned on, and that's going to be the end of the story. Sadly, did you hear that we lost Sinead O'Connor today?
Oh no, I didn't. Did they say it was it?
They have not released what the cause of death is. However, she was 4 years older than I am. She was not not a woman that was, on in years. I think she's 56. She was born in 1966 is when she was born. So, but
Yeah, I mean,
her son took his life. He had some troubles, and he ended up taking his own life pretty recently. So there's some speculation as to what
makes you wonder if she didn't follow in his footsteps.
Yeah. She had really struggled with depression and with mental illness for a while. So I don't know. It's a sad thing. I hate, the older you get, the more that you see the people that you grew up with and the people that you really, you kind of groove to at a younger age or whatever, they start disappearing. It's absolutely awful. So I did a video earlier. I need your opinion on this.
Okay.
I did a video earlier today, and I'm sure that people are going to go, smells a lot like politics, but it also smells so much like drugs. Hunter Biden's plea deal was thrown out of court today, and it is brought up. It really kind of brings to light every time they talk about this dude, the images of him with a crack pipe. And truthfully, the one that they take a picture of is a meth pipe, the one where it's hanging out of his mouth while he's sleeping. But there's a lot of pictures of this dude with a lot of different kinds of drugs, including Klonopin, prescription drugs. He's on virtually everything. But they pulled back that deal today. And then what was it last week? They found some cocaine in the White House. I struggle, Mark. I would love your opinion, but I struggle to believe that there's a place in the White House that isn't really well enough filmed, right? That doesn't have a camera positioned well enough to know everything that is going on in every square inch of that building.
Didn't they find it in like a flower pot or something like that?
Here's the thing. They gave us 3 different answers to where they found it, right? The first time it was over in the executive suites, which is just like, that's White House and family kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's living areas. Yeah.
Right. And then they changed it, and then they changed it again. So I don't think anyone at this point really has a clue where they found it, but I did hear the flower pot thing.
It just makes you sick, man. You can't help but think, man, was he over there doing blow in like the Lincoln bedroom or something? I mean, how
any doubt in your mind that he did? And here's why I say that. I'm not busting on Hunter Biden, Mark. I swear to God, I'm not. But if I were in the White House and I had been in the life and my dad was the president, I'd have shot to open every room in that house.
Oh, yeah.
Or smoked it off a foil or whatever. But the Lincoln bedroom would have been the first one I went in. The mindset when you're in the life, I guarantee you, yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, and even in like not even really the living areas, but like the Oval Office. I mean, that has to be a goal for somebody like him. I mean, honestly.
There's
just to be able to throw that in his back pocket because he wears it like a badge, man.
Right. I mean, there's not a question in my mind. The clip of film that's been making the rounds here recently showed him on the balcony of the White House. And I don't know whether it was a fireworks display or what they were doing, but everybody was out there and they were doing the family wave thing. And he's lit. I'm sorry. Like, you know what I mean? I've spent a decent amount of my life doing things like this. That man's lit. And all of the mannerisms, you can literally watch him working through the drip. Like,
oh, yeah.
He's sitting back there just kind of going through it. And
trying not to go.
Right. Yeah. If there were sound, it would have been excellent because he's rocketing and he's moving all over the place and bouncing. But right as he's walking off camera, if you take your eyes off of him, ignore him, and look at Jill Biden, I'm not joking you. I think Jill might have been tooting with him that night.
I bet, man. I mean, we've actually talked about that too before. I mean, probably multiple times that, we actually, when you're in a life like that, especially once you get into recovery, you start seeing those things and you have to almost block it out because
over and over again.
Yeah. It drives you nuts. You see somebody walking down the street, I caught myself doing it with my wife in the car. And I'm like, yep. And I was like, just stop. Just stop. Yeah. Don't do that. Quit judging people because that's what you're doing.
I know. There's it's exactly what I'm doing. It is. And I'm telling you, I cannot stop. And it's not just him. I struggle with this. I really do. But the craziest part of this story is I talked about this briefly on the last video. I said, man, it really looked like, and I didn't come up with this. I saw this on someone else's channel. I didn't pick up on it until he showed it. And I went,
okay.
Oh man, you got to be kidding. But when I brought it up, somebody in the comment section the last time went, oh man, I thought the same thing. Yeah. And it just made me laugh because, if you spent enough of your life doing dope, you see somebody doing something and it's just, there are certain affectations that are constant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think we were talking before, we went live too. We can't forget that, maybe he isn't like that without those substances.
Amen.
He deserves just as much of a chance to get better than like we do. Now,
Amen.
if he makes bad choices, okay, whatever, right? But
Yep.
I would challenge anybody that's ever had an addiction that didn't continue to make bad choice after bad choice after bad choice.
And he's also in a group of guys, his uncle, right, his dad, and some other people who all seem to be kind of involved in this thing in some level or not. But he's the youngest of every single person there, and it seems like he had the biggest role. And I kind of feel like he just got used, and it's very easy to take advantage of a person who's got a drug problem.
Well, I mean, it's like he's got unlimited cash flow too. That's enough problem.
Unlimited, and he was going at it like Rodney King. He was going at it like anybody that has a very serious problem, especially with cocaine or speedy drugs that keep you awake. He did what most people do. He blew unbelievable amounts of cash on prostitutes and on drugs. And that's honestly, I know that it gets clowned on in the press, and it makes for good Saturday Night Live stuff. But I promise you that a guy that is spending that kind of money on prostitutes and cocaine is miserable.
Yeah,
what I mean? That's a miserable cat, and he's trying to buy any kind of happiness he can a few minutes at a time. And I'm not a fan of of what's going on, but on a personal level, I wish the guy found the boat. And because honestly, as long as we've been doing anything, this cat's had a drug problem for a really long time.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
he tried to enter the military, and he dropped hot before ever even being able to basically put on a uniform. He failed the very first entrance, and he was going in to an officer program of some kind. Like he was getting hooked. He was getting an opportunity to really sort of make a name, and failed the initial drug test, and that was a hot minute ago. And then you remember the rent-a-car?
Yeah.
He turned in a rent-a-car, and he left a chunk of coke in a bag in the rent-a-car, conveniently enough with his driver's license. So when you see the laptop thing, you can kind of see it's a guy that's in the life. He's completely scattered. He dropped off a laptop with so much dirt on it and just left it there.
Yeah. Well, why would somebody at that level take that particular laptop to a pawn shop? I can't get over that. It's like it's almost so ridiculous that it might be a lie. You know what I mean? It's like, what is it? It's crazy.
There's really something to that. I mean, I guess apparently what he did which is just he took it to a place that, yes, absolutely does apparently take stuff and trade and loan money. But there's a guy there that repairs stuff, and the guy's job was just to sort of get this thing up and running. But how do you drop it off and forget to come back and get it? It wasn't like this was a $200,000 bill that had to be paid. It is such the drug addicted life.
Yeah. And I don't know the answer to this. You might. Did he do it himself, or did he send somebody in and do it?
Oh no, he dropped it off himself.
He actually went into the pawn shop himself and did that.
Yeah, this is a guy that seems to me to again, he got through law school. Now he may have gotten a little bit of assistance, and maybe they help here, they help there, or whatever. But you still, I mean, he passed the bar. He passed the bar.
Like, he's a smart dude. Yeah, for sure.
He's not a stupid individual. So when you start seeing the decisions that are getting made by somebody like this, it just screams drugs.
Oh yeah.
He went in. So for anyone that's anyway, businesses, if you incorporate a business, right? If you have a business that's a corporation, you cannot commingle assets. In other words, if I have a corporation, I can't decide to go buy a 6-pack and a carton of Marlboro Reds and have my corporation pay for it, right? Because the corporation gets certain breaks and everything else, money can't be commingled, assets can't be commingled. He went into his corporation and paid for a prostitute from California to fly all the way to Washington, D.C. and right out of the corporate funds, which means it's open to the entire world. This is a guy, and again, it makes for good punchlines or whatever. But truthfully, that's a messed up individual. This is a guy that's just like, you know what, I don't care. He showed up on their radar 115 or 116 times for doing something that caught the attention of investigators at the IRS. So he just either he thinks he's bulletproof, or he honestly is just so far off in the life with dope that there's not much hope.
Yeah,
I
think it really points to how much how far down we can get and not even know it. He didn't know he was like that, or he wouldn't have done it. Because just like we just said, he's a smart dude. And so what happened, in my opinion, what happens is his brain's been changed in a way that makes him do what would seem to be irrational things. And he rationalizes it. And for somebody like him, I think it's at a different level, because you almost have a sense, he would have a sense of being above the law. He would probably think, well, that'll just get me out of this.
Well, and he's got a team. You know what? Those kind of kids do have a team of lawyers, that kind of fixers, they call them. You know what I mean? These aren't guys that go to trial, but they're attorneys that pay people off, and they do things like that. And I feel for Hunter Biden. I swear to God, I do. He's one of those lives that you go in one of two directions, and his brother, really went the other way. Like his brother was a hero, and just really did everything sort of perfect and by the book, and Hunter seemed to go the opposite direction.
Now, I've heard other things too, about what he's done, and the other things are really, really bad.
If those are true, and I've yet to see, but
I haven't seen any proof either. But
if those come out to be true, and I think everybody here knows what some of those allegations are. If those allegations turn out to be true, then all bets are off.
Oh
At that point, it will be very difficult to.
He gets what he gets. Then, in my opinion, that's just what it is.
At that point, he gets what the justice system hands out. But
I think.
Go ahead.
Didn't Ian? I seen a comment come across there say something about Kevin Spacey got.
Kevin Spacey. Is it my understanding that Kevin Spacey walked?
Yeah, that's what Ian just put on in that chat, and I'm sitting there thinking.
Yeah, that's a shocker.
Yeah,
but on the other side of the equation, though, that is, it's a little slightly different legal system.
Yeah,
I hate to say this, but people who they don't seem to treat those people the same way over there as they get treated over here, especially recently. You know what I mean? Like since the whole Me Too thing and everything else, now there's nobody handing out any light sentences for anything like that. But I'm a little blown away that he didn't.
There was probably drugs in that also. They're always usually anytime any of that stuff is happening, there's an underlying issue of drugs. And at least at some level. Now, it's not always true or whatever, but for me, from what I see, that's what I see when I see stuff like that.
You know what? It's a perfect segue into the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because we have not talked about this yet on the air together. And the Scientologist, Danny Masterson, from that 70s show, who has been convicted of the R word in two different cases of SA, right? A kind of assault. And he's now facing at a minimum of 30 years. He's going to have to bring him 30 years, but apparently there was a handgun used in one of those offenses. So he's got an enhancement that could get him anywhere from like 10 more years all the way up to life, depending on the judge. So this is coming up, but again, another one of those stories that's got, drugs all over it. Apparently the drug that was gamma hydroxybutyrate, he was actually using GHB. And I was corrected by a crew member of the boat that told me something that just absolutely blew me away. But gamma hydroxybutyrate, they do write prescriptions for this in the United States now. It is rare as hell that they do. But for certain individuals who struggle with narcolepsy, to ensure that during the day they don't have that problem, they don't just go to sleep at night, they go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
So I guess, he may have been able to procure this thing from somebody that way, but he was using GHB on these.
Well, I think the people around him too are starting to speak out, because I seen because Ashton Kutcher has been trying to back off of that, not really address it, and he addressed it like yesterday.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, there's a clip out there. There's a YouTube clip out there. You can go see it.
Okay.
I haven't watched it yet myself, but after all that stuff was found guilty, he almost has to.
Well, I'll tell you something else. That's gonna get your attention. But there are a lot of people that are talking that there were other people from that '70s show that may have dirty hands in some of this, and that is coming from fairly reliable sources, from what I understand. And who knows? I would imagine that if any of them had ever done anything even remotely, untoward, they're probably not sleeping very well right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, because they did that the show The Ranch also after that '70s show was over, and I don't know, man. I mean, you can just tell that something was already off.
How many of the cat was it? Just the two of them?
They had cameos of the others come in. It was those two, and I forget the dad's name. He's very famous. I can't remember his name. He was actually the brother in the new Star is Born show.
Really?
That guy was their dad in The Ranch, and it was a hysterical. I mean,
is it kind of a continuation of the first show? Because I can't watch any of that stuff.
No, they were brothers, and they lived on a ranch.
Oh, okay.
But even the set was weird. It was just odd. It was
a little off.
Yeah, and I can't remember what platform it was on. I think it was Netflix or something. You couldn't get it on regular TV, obviously. I mean, you had to have one of those services to see it. But they did kind of play into the same kind of comedy, because once you get, typecast like that,
no question,
like Masterson was. Did you ever see him do anything else? No. Right. Unfortunately, that's what happens with the really famous shows, and they get typecasted and can't get out of it.
Well, you can't look at them as any other way. You know what I mean? Like, he's Hyde. Well, now he's a low life piece of crap. He's going to spend the vast majority, if not the rest of his life, in prison. But
I mean,
that one was I don't know. I feel like that was we'll see. I feel like justice has been served, but until the sentence is complete, I'm kind of a cynic.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a cynic. I mean, this is the way I look at it, from just sort of the convict point of view. He's got special circumstances on this case, right? Because he's used a drug to drug these people, and that's in a normal place, that's an enhancement that gives you the opportunity to be prosecuted tougher. And then and that was with both of them. And then he used a gun on one of them. I think, if he doesn't get a lot more than 30 years, then something's wrong.
Yeah, something's off there if that doesn't happen. And I do see in these cases with these stars and stuff now, these judges are bucking the system and giving these guys harder sentences. They're starting to actually make them pay for what they've done, because, as much as we all want to sit up here and say they're all just evil and bad, well, there are still some good ones out there that are going to do the right thing.
No question.
It's like the hearing today, and I don't think we want to talk about the UAP thing, but I watched some of that, and those guys, I mean, they got to have guts to come out and even talk about it. And,
oh man, in the climate we're in.
Yeah. So in whatever position people fall on that, there's so many of them now, just on that subject alone. And, but you got to know, when you get to that level, you're sitting there testifying, before a special committee about something that most people would call you crazy over. Right.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind. I was explaining it to my daughter. I was like, because she sat there and watched it with me for like 5 minutes, and I didn't watch the whole thing because, even though they're whistleblowers or what have you, you just don't know if they're. I mean, it's so hard to know what the truth is, and I think that's been a goal of just whoever is, the people that are running everything for real. Well, you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, so I always fall back to that line of thinking, and it's like, what do you do? How do you fix that problem? You don't.
Wow. Can you read Rip's message?
See here.
It says
Man.
it says Fent hit his town, and there was a party where 5 out of 6 young adults, already passed away, and in a week, is that what it says? 1 week? Yeah, and in a week, it's already killed 20 people. Good Lord! And I'm telling you, this is spreading in ways that we have a national crisis on our hands.
Oh yeah. I mean, if there was ever something we should be standing up and fighting about, it's this. This is the stuff that takes you down from the inside, and we talked about this at nauseum, man. I mean, you know what I mean? We were the first. I don't want to say we were the exact first to talk about, the big red people over there, the red flag people, but I think we might have been close to the first to start shouting it.
Sure as hell screaming about it real early on in the game.
And now it's all coming to be true,
Well, it's interesting because, after having even, gone for a while, like we would come on here and speculate about this and why perhaps, no one has ever mentioned fentanyl. Really interesting. They sent Mayorga over to talk to his counterpart from China, and he actually said the word fentanyl. This was in the last meeting. Now we're a little bit more than 2 years into a administration that, and this is the number one cause of death on their watch. But they did bring it up just 2 years into the battle. Not much was. They gave them a pat on the head, so to speak, and said we're going to put together a committee to look into that. So isn't that something? Maybe if they started looking into it 2 years ago, we'd be in a different place than we're at right now.
Yeah, and I would say so. It's such a big problem now. I don't know that it can get fixed all the way. I don't think it ever will at this point, but we can make it better.
Yeah, I think, and it's a sad conversation to have. It really is a sad conversation to have because, there's not much that there's nothing on the radar really for me that's a bigger deal. And the realization that, we have let this get so far away from us that, a lot of this is going to be the damage done, even when we get it under control. And if we were to reverse every policy that's hurting us right now, and we were to go down there and really get tight on the border and do a lot of the things that would stem the flow a little bit, it would certainly be a lot better. But the damage that's done is most assuredly the damage that is done. And a lot of lives are already ruined, and a lot of people have already lost their lives. Look at poor Ripstown. And people, Rip doesn't live in New York City. You know what I mean? We're not talking about a metropolis.
Yeah, when you see Rip, you can go aloha. He's from Hawaii. Rip, good to see you, brother. Good to see you feeling better. He was fighting it there for a minute. And I think you do that too, I'm sure.
You know who else has been? We had Dennis Brace had surgery on his heart. He's sitting up. He's doing a lot better. But, he had surgery on his heart. Kind of heavy duty.
Yeah. I think Rip had pneumonia, I think.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. So, but yeah, we talked about, I think that at this point, the southern border, or whatever we want to call it here, obviously we know the stuff's pouring in there, but I think, in my opinion, just like it tends to move, right? Because they will move it around, and we would be fools to think that it ain't coming in on every border. And
I don't doubt for 1 second that I would be willing to also bet that there are backup routes in place for when any one of them gets too hot. Like at this point, and this is what I meant earlier, agreeing with you when you said it may be too late. In a lot of ways it is, because they really now have got this down to a science. They came out in a news report and they said, at any given time there's X number of drones above the southern border. And I don't remember what the number is. It was over 1,000. And you're thinking to yourself, and how are we letting all these in? And then the reporter says, unfortunately, better than 60% of those belong to the cartel.
Yeah.
And you just think the drug cartels are putting more intel up in the sky than we are. Like that to me is
Well,
terrible.
it's funny you mentioned that because when I was on vacation and you know, we don't tend to watch a whole lot of TV or anything anyway, especially when you're on vacation, right? I mean, you're doing other stuff, and that's what we did. But you know, a couple of the nights it was raining and this and that, so you ended up getting stuck in the condo, and we were flipping through, and the TV is down there for whatever reason. The TV in the bedroom was not a smart TV, so we had to go buy a Roku. Which is ridiculous, man. Hook it up in there. So we can't even watch any because the channels and stuff that they had down there is just anyway, not going into that. But we were finally able to watch Netflix, right? Because that's we don't watch regular TV anymore. I mean,
nobody watches regular TV.
Yeah, but there's, and I know I just took the scenic route to what I'm getting ready to say, but there's a new Netflix special talking about Colombia and the guy that started the cartels and what he did. He did it intentionally. He says it, and I didn't know this. I mean, I knew that this guy was whatever he was, but he went into hiding in the back somewhere so many times. He started all of that with the intent to take down us. He said it over and over and over and over again. So he got them lanes set up a long time ago, and all these roads are just being, you know, there it is. Here it comes. It's already set up. And it's like, wow. But
it's terrifying. And they keep up in the strength. They keep up in the strength of the drug. They keep mixing in things that are more dangerous. I mean, and honestly, if you step back and you just look at this and say the story's already written, right? We're already toward the end of it. And you look at the developments that we've talked about on the boat over the last 2 years. And when, you know, right around the time that we started saying, you know what, they're going to allow Narcan to be given out free in every single pharmacy in the United States of America.
What are they doing?
They're not going to charge people. They are not going to make you have a prescription. We came on here and we were just, we were happy as hell.
Yep.
And it wasn't 2 or 3 days later that you started hearing about this stuff, xylazine, that was getting mixed in with and now you got, you know, 2 respiratory depressants and one that will not in any way, shape, or form get any love off of the Narcan. So they're Narcan in these people and Narcan in these people, and it's just, it just looks engineered to kill as many people as you possibly can.
And I try to look at every situation as if I'm a student. You know, I don't want to ever go into anything I'm talking about and think I know everything, because I don't. Right. And, you know, obviously, me and you are very well versed on what we're talking about here. We wouldn't be sitting here, right? Yeah. And most of that it came from us digging into it because we wanted to understand ourselves. You know, what was happening to ourselves. You know, it was at the beginning, it's a selfish thing. It really is, because you just want to know, why am I, and why does this work, this, that, and the other? And eventually it just you get that knowledge base. And when we start speaking about it, and then we start seeing things like this, you know, it's, you want to be wrong.
Well, there's really something to that. How much better it would feel if we could just go, yeah, we're wrong.
Yeah.
But from buying a lot of dope from a lot of people for a lot of years, when a batch of dope kills people, you're getting weak dope for like 5 or 6 months. Like, you got to go back to your guy and go, hey, I understand you're not trying to kill anybody, but that stuff's not going bang.
Especially with the way they've changed the laws on that. You know, they can now go back to the dealer and charge them for murder.
And they should be able to, because at this point, that's what they're trying to do. They're targeting an age group. I mean, just purely, again, having been a drug addict. If you hadn't been a drug addict, it might not be so glaring to you. But anybody that's ever bought dope, it's like, so let me get this straight. The drug dealers are killing off the people that are buying the dope from them, and they like that business model. Yeah. It's not about money anymore, because when you start killing your customers, you back the hell off. And what's happening instead is they're upping the strength. They're adding stuff that's way stronger. And now, you know, that we're seeing them start to not necessarily phase out fentanyl, but certainly there's a lot more of the phyto and the isonitazines that are on the street. That's really, really heavy now everywhere. Again, not a state in the United States that they haven't found nits. So it's just, and when we talked about that, I guarantee you, that there wasn't anyone else talking about?
Oh no, not at all.
That was really early on in this fight.
And we both dug into that, like, head first, man. I mean, we took our shovels and went deep. It was because it was at that point, it was hard to find information on it. It wasn't as easy as just clicking a Google search. It was, we used Google, but we just didn't go to the search box.
You know what? The cool thing is, though, that over the course of a period of time trying to research that, people, if you never saw the show that we did, I'll try to get the title of it so we can put it in the Dropbox. But Mark and I did a show about an antidote, right? In the form of a V, those things that we can't say out loud or they will demonetize and hide this video. But you know what I'm talking about, the old in the shoulder. That would literally block the effects of opiates across the board. And it was a bizarre thing. And the deeper we got, we found out that the people bankrolling this thing was our military.
Yeah,
which was a pretty eye-opening thing as well. It's like, why is the military so deep into trying to figure all of this stuff out?
And what we do, then it caused me and you to start thinking about other things that could be happening. I'm not sure if you said it or if I said it or something. We were texting back and forth, and it can't, through our conversation, you start realizing what they could do with something like that. They could give it to, make our soldiers immune to whatever we're talking about, with whether we're talking about fentanyl, because that's the other thing we discovered too. They can specifically go after one particular opiate.
Correct.
It doesn't have to be the whole cross the board thing.
Nope.
And like naloxone just knocks it all off there. And but it's so if they give, say, our soldiers that, then they can just march in somewhere and start dropping fentanyl in the air. I mean, and our soldiers will walk around, watch everybody.
Yeah, huge airplanes just spraying it like you're doing crops. Go in there and kill everything that moves, and then go back 2 or 3 days later, send in those guys to do cleanup. It's a frightening thing, but they're really, it makes you start wondering. This is really funny. Did you see this? Carousel Delirium says, my big pet peeve, Molly is not Molly. It's just a new form of ecstasy. I'll tell you the truth. Here's the deal with Molly, right? For a very long time, one of the ingredients to make ecstasy was difficult to come across, because the government really got kind of vicious about trying to make it difficult to make that stuff. And for a while, it was really kind of hard to get. So people made these ecstasy products that weren't ecstasy. They most assuredly got you high as hell, right? And they made you feel like you were on something, but it wasn't quite ecstasy. So when ecstasy came back that was actual ecstasy, people started calling that drug Molly to differentiate it from all of the stuff that they'd been calling ecstasy for 5 or 6 years. That was bathtub.
Yeah.
Trouble is, now there's a lot of people selling bathtub and calling it Molly too. So
yeah, but, whatever your drug of choice is, you most likely think the other ones are like, why would anybody ever want to do that one? You know what I mean? You have a preference, and I think we all know that. I mean, it's not something that's a secret. It's just, when you're talking about Molly, that was kind of like, it's like the club drug. People go in there and they do that and start dancing or whatever they're going to do, but that's what they. But I did
a crap load of that when I was young, because it was there was a period of time when I was living in Texas where you could actually just buy it. There was nothing that made the drug illegal. It was kind of like the,
like mini thins. Remember mini thins?
Yeah, Crosshouse.
Yeah, and you can't buy that stuff. It's not the same stuff either.
No, it's not. They sell them, but now they're like caffeine or something.
Yeah, I think it has some of the whatever in it, but it's not the high level of it. And
no, those used to be. Those used to be, what do they call it? Methadone. That's what they used to be.
Yeah. And those meth should say the first word to you right there.
As opposed to methamphetamine, or something that's just called methadone, and it was good at keeping you up for long periods of time.
Yeah, I remember working at a gas station, and I had never taken any of these things. Right, so I'm working at a gas station, like 18 years old, young kid or whatever. And they sell them in the bottles, and they had these little, they probably still have them, but they're like these little paper packs that had like 6 of them in it. And And back then I was so stupid. I didn't read directions. I figured, what's in that little pack? You just take all of them. I was bouncing off the walls, man. I was going. It
For a
was
day and a half.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing with those, there is a hard crash when you come on the other side of that.
There is no question.
The biggest caffeine crash you would ever get. I mean, that's what I felt like after about 4 hours, you know. And it's like, man, I thought this was supposed to get me through the day, not make me want to.
No, now you got to fire back about three or four times more than you took the first time.
It's like, why did I start talking so much?
Yeah,
it was, you know. Obviously, I'm laughing because that was funny to me then, you know. But nowadays, you look at that kind of stuff, and it's like the energy drink thing, and all that stuff. You know, it doesn't have to be like a life-changing addiction for it to be bad for you. And I think that's people need to realize that, because, you know, even the energy drinks, they were, you know, killing people. You know, our kids were doing whatever. You ever chuckling? What are you chuckling about, man? I can see that little smirk.
No, I know. There was a so when I was in high school, right? And I've said this on the boat a couple of times. I think that we really there are a lot of old people on this boat. Our age group is well represented on the lifeboat audience. So
right.
We really lived through some of the last years of, just go out and get high and try it, whatever. Because there was nothing really in the market that you had to be. I mean, you had to respect drugs, but you didn't have to be afraid that there's a really good chance there's poison in what you're about to do. And you know, it's changed over time to where there's always something out there that's a little bit dangerous. But I remember in high school, guys ordering cross tops and ordering like all of these different pills out of like Hustler or one of those magazines, one of those classy publications. And in those days they would call it, you know, like weightlifting supplements, or they would call it. And there was always a guy like all yoked up. So these kids bought all this stuff, and we're telling them by then, you know, that stuff doesn't have anything in it anymore. At this point, you're just buying caffeine pills.
Right.
And well, they got these things and ate, I mean, handfuls and handfuls of these things. And like 3 of them ended up in the hospital for caffeine. Yeah, it was a really big deal in my school. So when you started talking about guys, you know, chugging energy drinks and this and that, at the same time, what they were drinking was the only energy drink on the planet at that time.
Wow.
Which of course was Jolt Cola. That was the only drink on the market that,
you know, that Jolt Cola was like really like thick almost.
Yeah, it was not a particularly tasty beverage, unfortunately.
It was cola, but it wasn't. It's like extremely sweet. And it was just like, you drink one of them, it's like make you sick, man. I mean, but as a kid, you didn't care. I mean, you're going to, you know, I had a buddy of mine take a whole box of Vibrant once. And so
through the ringer.
Yeah. And this is a guy that didn't do any of the drugs or anything. He actually, we ended up having to take him to the hospital because he was like vomiting like green and yellow stuff, man, bile. It was bad on him, but he didn't realize he was doing that either. And I'm saying that because our kids, you know, Rick brought up the fentanyl thing. You know, did he say it was in the weed? Is that what he said? Pretty sure. Is that what he said, or was it just a bad batch of fentanyl? But either way, they're lacing everything with it. You know, it's all there, and our kids got to be educated, and that's.
You know what? There's I don't know if my brother is still here, but this is. So when I was in high school, we had a boy in our school who was very much like Gary Coleman or Emmanuel Lewis. He just had a condition that he was not looking any older, getting any older looking in any way, shape, or form. I mean, in his 20s, he looked like he was in his teens. But I was in a class with him in high school. It was a Spanish class, and this guy Mark is like maybe 70 pounds, 75 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he looks. If you saw him walking with somebody, you would have assumed he was 6. You know what I mean? Like that's. But so I'm sitting in this class and I'm watching him, and he's doing this one, and he's leaning over as far as he can in his chair, and he's got his hand on the ground, and he's doing this number on the ground with his hand, right? And everybody in the room is looking at him. And one of my friends is in the front doing this one. I'm like, what are you doing? You know? Well, it turns out these geniuses sold this very small human being a little bit of acid. And so at the time this is going on, there's no teacher in the room. There's nothing. But she comes back. And while she's gone, they're yelling at him. Hey, man, neck it in. You know what I mean? Like you're getting ready to get to see a police officer. You got to neck it in. And he promises he gets it together, right? Yeah, I'm good. Well,
right.
He comes back and he starts leaning over in that chair and he's doing the exact same thing with his hand. And she says to him, I won't use his real name. You know what? I can use his first name, whatever his name is, because I don't want to make one up. But so his name was Joel. And she says to him, Joel, what are you doing? And he said, picking up my hand. And a couple of us giggled and laughed, but she must have read the face of everybody else in the room and realized that this wasn't good. So she just got really nice, like the kind of nice that's scary. Oh,
yeah.
Joel, okay. Well, I'm going to go get somebody that might be able to help you with picking up your hand. And we're like, oh, no. But as they were walking him out of the room, she was saying, did you do anything today or anything else? And he's like, I ate this piece of paper I bought from Jimmy. Oh. And I remember sitting in the room and looking at all of my friends going, oh, I'm just so happy my name isn't Jimmy.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to say. Because
growing up,
just unintentionally just knocked out his friend.
Just instantly. He didn't hold his mud until he got out of the classroom. It's just a piece of paper I bought from Jimmy. But I'm sorry. I had to relay that. That literally was for an audience of one, because when that happened, that was for Johnny. Because when that happened, that was one of those things that was like, it was legendary in my town. And his mom was a prison guard. It was a big deal. Got a lot of people in trouble. And fortunately, it was one of the few things that happened in my town that I had nothing to do with. And I actually got to just sort of sit back like this and giggle like everybody did at me most of the time. It was,
I think all of us had those kinds of stories. Any of us that, well, even the ones that aren't had gone through an addiction. I mean, they see it. Kids. I mean, it's just, I hate to keep saying that, but it's the truth. Our kids are naturally going to want to experiment. And that's why it's so important for the central family structure to talk to each other.
Huge.
Don't be afraid. And the other thing, too, I would say, pick your battles. If you find out that your kid is, smoking some weed once in a while, and for a fact it's just once in a while, pick your battle, please. Educate them and then pick your battle.
It's just weed, and that's the only thing you're doing. My firm belief at this juncture of where we are on the planet is that if the only thing your kid ever did was smoke a little weed, you win the lottery. You know what I mean? You win the lottery. It would be great. It would be great if they're not smoking a half an ounce of it a day. I mean, I'm not encouraging people to go out and see how much pot they can smoke or have their kids do that or anything else. But it's just Mark makes such a solid point. There are people that freak so badly out on the really small things that very often they can create drama and things that drive people to the big things. Communicate, talk to your kids so that if they do screw up, they screw up on something like weed.
I mean, I think I've said this here before, probably multiple times, but I'll say it again. My 27-year-old, to this day, when he calls me at 3:00 in the morning, I know why he's calling. Right? Yeah. He's drank too much, and he's out having fun with his friends or wherever he's at. Normally they're not even out. He's at his friend's house and just wants to go home. Right? He'll call me and I don't even ask. Right? Yeah. And the reason why is because the second that you do and you start pushing against that, I mean, the next day you might, I usually have a conversation with him like, hey man, you might want to slow down or something, buddy. But please, thank you. Call me every time. And that's what I do. And I do 100% because, it started off as being once or twice. And now if it happens to him at all, even if he's not even like really, really smashed, just caught a little buzz, he don't want to get a DUI. So he'll call me. It's like, man, how smart is that? What did I do right there? And then I look back on it and exactly what I said. I told them. Specifically, I won't ask you any questions. I won't slam you on this. Just call me. Can't fix something if they're dead. You can't. And that's one of the biggest problems we have, I think, The communication. Well, obviously, communication and connection is what beats it. I mean, it's just what it is. And, but you can take it to our kids at a different level there too. And just, because when they're that age, especially when they're young, like teenage years, even preteen, you got to say something to them, because that's when their minds are being developed the most. They can be influenced. Not that you're trying to influence or manipulate them, but if you don't put that counter in there, the other side's you better bet your butt the other side's talking to them.
Well, and you know what? This is the biggest common misconception among parents who are trying to figure out a way to raise a drug-free kid, is that your kids don't want to hear it from a parent and they don't want to listen to them. Your kids trust you more than they trust anyone else on the planet, whether you believe that or not. What they don't want is to feel like, they're getting lectured, or you're judging them, or you're,
Right.
You don't trust them or anything along those lines. But if you just have really open lines of communication, I don't think you could do any better than that. And
that's,
boy, this cat is just such a challenge.
Is it going to stop them from making bad decisions? Absolutely not. It's just going to, what it's going to do is at some point they're going to figure out that, hey, if they find themselves in a bad spot, they're going to have an avenue to get out of it. Right. And that's the biggest, for me, that's the biggest thing. You don't have to call me. You don't have to call whoever. Call whoever you're comfortable with. I just want you here. Hey, Squirrel, what's up, buddy?
Yes.
What are you doing?
I'm so sorry. This cat is a menace, Mark. This cat is a menace. I promise you, she is a stone cold menace. The problem is she knows that, like, her time's coming up. Squirrel likes to make a really big entrance. You know what I'm saying? She likes to make a really big entrance. You know what? It's such a key point. And if you tell your kids, you know what, you got to get on a jail free card. Am I going to talk to you about this? You bet, but I'm not going to do it that night. And I'm never going to lecture you. I'm not going to give you any crap. I just want you to feel comfortable to call me. And when they do, you celebrate it like it's the greatest thing in the entire world. You go out there and get them in the car and just go, good for you. Well played. Right? That's my boy. I'm proud of you. There are things we can do to try to keep our kids on the planet longer. It's a tough battle. There's a lot that goes against us. But you can absolutely say to them, don't trip. Call me if you need a ride.
Exactly.
You never have to worry about that. I don't care if you're in the same state. I will arrange, transportation. I'll do whatever you need to do. We did a show on here with a girl named Virginia that I knew really well, and she tried for 20 minutes. For real. Like, she reached out, she texted all of her friends, she did all of these things, and then eventually she drove and had a bad accident, hurt a lot of people. Is actually doing some time for it right now.
I remember Virginia. Yeah. Didn't she get 7 years or something like that?
She did. She got 7 years. And she's started a charity to try to help people not have to go through the same thing. So it's, she's making something good come out of it. But I don't think that you can do a whole lot better than to just make it really clear that I'm not going to give you crap. If you call me to protect yourself from anything, you never got to worry about me being upset about it. I'm like you. Oh, I might lecture him or her the next day. I promise you, they might get an earful the next day. But that day, and I will be really nice about it too. But they're definitely going to have to talk to me if I drove out there.
Yeah, I want to mention something too, because I know we're getting close to the top here. I'm on medicated assisted treatment, and I'm pretty sure you still are too. I'm not sure. Yeah. And I don't have really any intent to try to get off right now. I'm in a good spot, right? Good. But I bring that up because we actually, through the outpatient program that I'm in right now, if anybody else is out there that's on the sublingual tablets, don't think that they can't melt in your car, because they do. We had somebody in my local group. They went and picked their script up and went back to work and had no thought of like how hot it is or whatever. Just didn't think that those tablets could melt. Those things melted in this pill bottle, and they actually, obviously the group place is going to question whether or not they're just trying to get more medication or whatever.
Betcha they are.
But it was proven that it was true.
Wow.
And it was proven very, very, very quickly also, because I think they called the pharmacist, and the pharmacist said, yeah, that can happen to those. So, I mean, when that, and I didn't think it was possible, to be honest with you.
Do you know how fast it would happen here?
Yeah. There's
You're not getting from the pharmacy to your car.
Yeah.
It's about 112 degrees today, I think.
Oh man, shoot. Get that.
I got another one. We've got a little bit of time left, and it was the last subject that I wanted to bring up because I think this is a big one, man. I really do. So you and I have talked a lot about shortages. By the way, New Zealand chili head, glad you're here, man. Glad you're enjoying it. So we've talked a lot about the shortages of medication.
Yeah.
Right. For real. There's a lot going on right now. People with shortages of medication all over the world, not just the United States, but certainly here as well. And it is affecting people on medical assisted treatment, people on naloxone and on who are also taking Subutex or Suboxone or any of them in any of their forms. People are sometimes having a tough time. I would suggest to everybody that you try to get your meds about 4 or 5 days minimum before you need them so that you don't run into that, yeah.
I've even strongly thought about switching over to Subucade, the shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so interested in looking into Subucade, Mark. I can't tell you. Done a lot of research about it. I'm very, very seriously looking into that, which is a long-term thing. You get a shot and it lasts you the entire month, which is very, very convenient. You to stop thinking about it altogether because you never have to take it. Could you stop kidding?
The nurse practitioner were at my group place. She came from a setting where they use Subucade. And all the place I'm at now, all they do is Suboxone. That's just what they do. I'm not even sure if they even do Subutex because they want that naloxone in there.
Right.
And I get it. I mean, I'm not trying to, whatever your opinion is on that.
Yeah.
I say that because I asked her during about a month ago what her opinion was on that and how well it worked. And you could tell she couldn't really say everything because she works for this place, right?
Right, yeah.
But she said, I have never seen any negative aspects from that. She told me. Yeah, that's what she said. She said, yeah, there's going to be individual things, but an overall view of that, she said it does work. And, because they make you get, like, you have to be in withdrawal to go get that shot.
Yes.
And she did say that, at first you might feel a little hyped up or whatever, like you might catch a little buzz or whatever the first day or two.
First day to day and a half, I've heard, are a little bit fuzzy.
Yeah, and then after that, she says most of them don't even realize. And for me and you and anybody else out there on treatment, we would be questioning, is it going to hang in there for 30 days?
Right.
And she said it absolutely does.
I know a guy right now that reached out to me via email, and he's been tapering off. He's got a doctor that just sprays out half the shot. He's working with him. And he said that it's a 30-day shot, and he goes in on day like 45 or 50. Like he doesn't even at day 30, he's not hurting, which I find absolutely amazing. And I'll tell you something else. Yesterday, people, Pfizer had a building that was damaged by a tornado, and that caused a fire, which basically decimated this facility. And it's a shipping facility. And all of the stock that was in that facility is destroyed. So this is going to add a whole new layer of fun. Technically, it's most of what was destroyed, I guess, is not what you would get at a pharmacy. You would get it from the pharmacy at at a hospital if they need to bring you something in. But that's a pretty scary thing too, right? To be in a hospital and not have a drug that you need. But it's frightening stuff. Do what you can to make plans, and always try to make sure that you plan for the worst.
Sorry about that, man. Pop out of there.
Well, you should be
trying to get that stupid. The sun's like blaring me right in the face, man.
You know what? You give a guy like 6 months off, and he just goes to hell in a handbasket. I mean, look at you.
Hey, man, I do other things. There you go.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah.
So, I'm honestly, I'm a little panicky about the whole thing, but that does bring us to the top of the hour, folks. We're going to be back next week for Wednesdays with Wages. You don't know how stoked people were for this, Mark. I got a lot of emails that when I did the false first show, because I didn't not exactly, it's never been my forte. I'm not really the organizational machine. But yeah, after that one, I got a lot of emails. Everybody was really stoked to have you on.
Well, guys, I mean, I miss everybody too. Okay. And like Tommy and me have talked multiple times about this live. I mean, this is not just for you guys. This is something for we're just as much getting out of this, if not more, than what you guys are.
Make no mistake. I say it all the time. It's like working through your problems and just connecting with people. There are so many people on the boat that that this and doing it live is just like nothing else.
Jennifer, yeah,
glad to see Blue Kool-Aid.
Yeah, Tommy didn't know me as Blue Kool-Aid, guys.
I got there right after. I got out right after that party, but I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for
when they changed all the COPPA laws. I had to change my name because I was afraid they were going to mess with me.
Then they would.
Everybody was doing that. I mean, because it had a little cartoon figure and all that, and they would think, yeah. So anyway, I know we're at the top, man. So yeah, we will. I look forward to it.
You know that you and I are coming up on the 2-year anniversary.
Yes. Yeah,
which is
awesome.
just crazy. And I was telling everybody in the boat that back in the day when we were talking about setting goals and all that, we wanted 5,000 by the end of the second year, and it sounded like a pipe dream. I'll tell you what. But here we sit at.
Hey, man.
5,140. You got to love it, Mark.
Working hard, man. I mean, and guys, I will say this too. Just because I'm not talking in the chat doesn't mean I'm not in the chat. I sometimes, and I'll just be honest with you, I sometimes don't talk in the chat because I don't want to distract from what everybody's saying. And I know because everybody loves me and I love them back, and everybody just start talking, and I don't want to do that. So you guys understand that.
Yeah, I get that. I completely and totally get that. Alrighty, peeps. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
And this annoying little feline is a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We love you. Thanks, Heather, too.
Heather, love you.